Today, we will be making Gulab Jamoon with a little twist. So pay really close attention to this. It's going to be delicious. Right, so we're just going to put our butter into our flour and crumble it as though we're making pastries. Very similar techniques. So really get into the food. You're going to be rubbing here for a little bit, crumbling the butter into it. During this process, air is also going to be incorporated into your dough. So Gulab Jamoon is one of my favorite. I go to my wonderful local puja store and I buy their Gulab Jamoon because it is the closest thing I can get to a cake donut. I really love cake donuts, but they're really very hard to find in Trinidad and Tobago. I used to have them when I was younger. And as this is the closest thing, I enjoy them quite often. And I wanted to do my own recipe and get something as close to what I'm getting from the puja store. So I'm sharing this with you today because it's a little simpler than doing a full-on cake donut as well. So as you can see, the texture of it is changing. I'm doing a rubbing motion with my fingers. An important step to note is your butter should be very cold. If it isn't, it's just going to be flour paste. And you really don't want that. Alright, this is close to finish. Beautiful. And you can see how it falls. Crumbly. Yeah. So we're going to continue with our steps. Adding a little baking powder here. Powdered milk. So my ginger. Some more fresh ginger. Some wonderful orange zest here. That's my little surprise for you all. And I'm going to give this a good mix. I'm creating a well in the center because I'm going to fold this in right now with my wet ingredients. I have my spatula here. This is my condensed milk. And similar to pastry, I am using very cold water. This was in the freezer. Very, very cold water. So your dough is going to be cold. At this point, I'm going to take my bitters. And I'm going to dash. I did 4 dashes. Your dough is going to be a little bit tacky, but that is what it is we want. A tacky dough. I'm folding. And please note, I'm not adding all the water at once. You may not need all. You may just need the little bit that you may have started off with. If it is you do add all of the water, your dough might be too wet. Just put a little drop again. Yeah. Similar to a muffin recipe, you want it just incorporated. Nothing more. So this is us here. This is our dough. I'm going to get handsy with it now. As you can see, it has just come together very nicely. So I'm going to give this a little gentle press down and we're going to start our frying soon enough. We're just going to turn out our dough and then we're going to start our frying process when our oil is at the correct temperature. So I'm just going to flour my counter space here because the dough is tacky. So it's going to stick to your fingers a little bit. So we're just going to light flour dusting on top. Knock off some. And I'm just kind of pressing the dough in like this. So a little trick I realized, I'm using my bench scraper. This is something that we use in bread making, but I realized it makes it easier to just cut a corner and then give it a little roll. They traditionally go with this shape, so I'm going with this shape as well because I quite like it. But to each his own, so any shape that you want to go with, you can. I'm going to continue. But you can see all the lifting would have caused this nice, those air pockets to happen right there, which is going to give the gulab a nice light texture. It's really going to come close to that puja store gulab. That's my goal. And I have tested this recipe and it has. And I had to stop eating because I was eating too much. And I hope you all caught that little twist. Twist is the orange. Traditionally, gulab has cardamom and ginger flavors. I'm doing orange. I think it is a wonderful combination, orange and ginger. You have lemon and ginger. So if it is, try it. As you can see, as I'm rolling it, I'm doing it very gently because I don't want to compress the air pockets that were created during the mixing process from crumbling the flour and all the dry ingredients with the butter. I'm doing it a very light roll. This light roll is going to help it as well when it fries to just puff up very quickly without it taking very long in the oil to cook entirely. The worst thing is to fry something and it's nice and golden, and when you bite in, it's raw on the inside. It has happened to me, folks. It has. So I'm talking from pure experience here. And I fried this at 350 degrees. I found that at that particular temperature, it cooked really well. It didn't get too brown too quickly. Inside was just light and fluffy and nice. Exactly how I wanted it, which is important. As a cook, as a baker, it should come out the way you really want it to come out. Because then you share that with other people. You invite them to partake of the flavors that bring you joy. An important thing to note is to know if it is your oil is ready. If it is you don't have a thermometer to check it, you can either break off a little piece of what it is you're going to fry and put it into the oil to see if it produces bubbles. If it is producing bubbles, it is ready. You can use a wooden spoon or chopstick, a wooden chopstick, and if bubbles surround it when it is you insert, it is ready. Oil and water never mix, so it is never a good idea to drop water into oil. You're literally creating a bomb in the kitchen, which you really don't want. An oil burn is a really bad thing to have. I know from experience. I've tried some things in my life. So my oil is ready. I am going to start frying. So let's get it. Now, at this point, we are going to put it at 4 or 5 at a time. We do not want to overcrowd the pot of oil because it's just going to lower the temperature even more, causing this to take much longer to fry. Then absorbing all the oil. We don't want it to absorb the oil. It must just fry in the oil and wick off the rest. So let's start. There's a saying in cooking, you cannot rush it, and it is indeed true of things that are being fried. I'm just stirring this constantly so that even browning happens throughout. And I hope you noted that as soon as I dropped my lovely gulabs in, bubbles. Just look at that, folks, look at that. I am ready. This is a lovely brown, but it is not ready. It needs to get a little bit darker. Technically, you might be here for about 3 to 4 minutes. It comes with time, knowing when something is ready to take out. That's all part of it. Just trust the process, trust yourself. And look at this, it is fluffing out beautifully. I am impressed. Do be very gentle when you are stirring. You do not, as I said, you do not want to get an oil burn. It is not a nice thing. So be gentle. So folks, this first batch is done. And this is very handy, this particular style of frying basket. It allows you to shake it, and any excess oil just wicks back right into the hot pot. And I have my handy brown paper. No kitchen towels here, folks. Brown paper. We're going old school. I found it to be the best thing to absorb oil properly. So folks, we're going to fry our second batch. Again, another 5 will be going in. And we're going to continue frying until all our gulab is fried. So folks, we're going to be making our traditional sugar syrup to go on our lovely gulabs. A few things to note, you're going to need a wooden spoon. This is not for stirring the sugar because we don't want to stir the sugar to introduce crystallization. This is to turn the gulab when the sugar is ready. Quick movements, quick but gentle movements. You need a brush to just, with a cup of water, to just brush down the sides while it is boiling. And it needs to get to threading stage. Now, if it is you don't have a sugar thermometer, you can use your wooden spoon to simply just dip. And when it is you raise it very gently, if it is you see a thread when it drops down, it is ready. That is one way to know it is ready. So let's start this. I'm going to add my water and sugar together and let it come to a boil, and then we're going to monitor. It is time to turn our gulab in our syrup. I'm going to just empty the gulabs into my bowl here. And we are going to pour our syrup on it. You don't have to use all, just enough. I'm just going to turn very quickly. It has started to just stick. Oh, one broke already. That's okay. It's going to be eaten. It is crystallizing on me here, but our boy. Yeah, it started to get, it hit that stage real fast. Oh, sugar, funny business that, huh? So folks, our gulab is finished. There were some slight mishaps in the kitchen. I have to be very frank with you. I got to old talking and my sugar went to the other stages. It started to get a little brown at the edge, which means it started to caramelize. I still went ahead because we're in it. So here it is. I'm going to break it open because that's the most important part. Not so much the sugared look of it, but the texture of the gulab. So we're going to break open one now and we're going to do ourselves the honor of enjoying it. So stay with me here. And I break that open and you look at that texture inside. It's soft. I mean, I could see that without even tasting it. I've been eating it for a little while. So I'm going to eat this piece now. Surprisingly, the changed sugar state, that sort of caramel has worked well with this. The orange flavor is coming through. You're barely tasting the ginger in this. It's the orange. This is good. So that's my cake texture gulab. I'm really happy to have shared this with you. So I just want you to note that I worked really hard on this recipe. My mother, luckily, she loves to keep other old recipes, and she had recipes from the 80s, the 90s, early 2000s, and I was looking for the common thread in all of them. And I noticed that one of the common threads was baking powder. So a lot of the recipes that I saw recently don't have baking powder in them, but some of the older recipes did. So I decided to give that a try, and it came out the way that I wanted it to. So that Puja store, I'm making my own now.